My doctors initially, I never told them I was going to do triathlon, but when I got cleared for the first time to be able to put weight on my legs, so this is about the 3 month mark, and because they predicted I was going home in a wheelchair, because I told them 3 days into the fourth hospital I was in, the rehab hospital, they never tell me what my goal is. So 3 days after getting there, I said, well, you never told me what my goal is before I get out of the hospital. And they look at me kind of puzzled, and I said, I'm walking out of here on the last day. And they're just like, yeah, we're preparing you to go home in a wheelchair. And I saw these looks on like, you are out of your mind if you think you're walking out here. They didn't have to say it. I saw it on their face. Now, looking back, I could see why they thought I was a lunatic, because the first day I'm in this rehab hospital, they're transferring me from my bed to my wheelchair. And they asked me to sit up. And I couldn't sit up. I wasn't strong enough. And then they asked me to roll to my side. And I'm not strong enough to roll to my side. So they really had to drag me into the wheelchair. And then they asked me to push the wheelchair. And at this point, the cast had been off my arms for 3 or 4 days. So they were super weak. And this is about, 2.5 months after the accident. So I couldn't move for 2.5 months. So you lose all your muscle. Everything's
Sure.
gone. It's just skin hanging off bone.
Whew.
They say, push the wheelchair to breakfast. Let's just see what you can do. And the room's about 20 feet wide, and I only can make it about 10 feet across the room, pushing myself because my arms are so weak. And they take the wheelchair from behind. I never quit, but they said, if we let you keep pushing at this rate, you'll never get to breakfast, because breakfast only lasts an hour and you're never going to get there. So they keep pushing me. They knew I was going to try to walk out of there. Now, I think they totally forgot that, because they thought it was such a crazy idea that I was going to walk out of there. But about 5 weeks or so later, I go for an x-ray on my legs. So you only can do x-rays every 4 weeks. And at this point, the medical insurance is only going to pay for me to stay for so long. And if I didn't get good results on the x-rays and try to be able to put some weight on my legs, I was going to go home in a wheelchair. So I get the x-rays, and the doctor's like, well, you're not fully healed, but you're healed enough, we'll let you put some weight on your legs because it'll help you to heal those bones. So I go back to the hospital, and they say, are you ready? Do you think you want to walk today? I was like, I'm ready to walk right now. I don't want to wait till the rest of the day. So they bring me by myself in this big empty room for the rehabilitation at lunch. And they said, all right, now it's time. And I shimmy to the end, and I put my feet on the ground, and I'm like pushing as hard as I possibly can. And my legs are shaking out of control after 3 months of not being able to put any weight on my legs, and my pelvis being broken in my femur. And I'm able to push myself up, and then I'm able to walk. It's about 8 feet long. There's parallel bars here between to try to steady yourself if you need them. And I walk to the end of the 8 feet, and they have me do it twice, and they start bringing me back to the room, because they're like, we only could let you do so much in one day because you haven't walked in 3 months. So the person that's pushing me back in my wheelchair to my room is the person who looked at me and was like, there's no way you're walking out of this hospital. You're going home in a wheelchair. And she says to me, she's like, Jason, I thought you were going to be celebrating walking for the first time. She's like, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've never seen anybody with as many injuries as you had, bedridden as long as you have, just get up and walk like you did. But I was less impressed with myself. I was like, I didn't walk really well. And I said to her, I was like, but remember, the goal is not to walk a few steps. The goal is to walk out of this hospital on the last day. A week went by. I walked all the way out of the hospital and all the way back to my car with the assistance of crutches, but I did it on my own without help. So when I went to that doctor and they gave me clearance for the first time, my first question to them after they said, you'll be able to try to walk today, was how many more months before I can run? And the doctor choked on his coffee and was like, run? He's like, I'm the guy who did surgery on you. He goes, I don't think you really understand the extent of your injuries. You're probably never going to run again. It'll be too painful. So that was leading up. He didn't know I had the goal to do the triathlon. I looked at him and I was like, I kept it to myself. I said, okay, we'll see. And then 3 months later, I got more x-rays. And at this point, I'm out of the hospital. So this is about 6 months after the accident or so. And it's a different doctor giving me x-rays to check if my legs are fully healed. At that point, he said they're fully healed. And I said, well, what do you think about me walking or running when I get home? And he said, what do you mean running? Because he saw me walk into his office and I'm huge limp. I had more surgeries on my elbow, so my left arm is like 3 times the size of the other arm. I look terrible. And he's like, "What do you mean run?" I was like, "Well, you said my legs are healed. Does that mean I can go and run?" And I didn't tell him what the other doctor said 3 months earlier. I conveniently left that out. And he goes, I was like, "Well, can I break myself further if I try to run?" And he goes, "No, I'm not sure it's a great idea to try to run." But I said, "But it's not a no." He said, "No, it's not a no." So I got home that day and I put running shoes on, and it wasn't quite a run, but it was better than a walk. It's more like a waddle is what I call it. But I made it 50 feet, and then I go the next day, I'm going 100 feet. And then about a month after that, I had been running for about a month, and I'm talking to my mom, and no one ever let me in on how long recovery should take. And to be honest, I was scared to talk about, to be like, what is possible to recover from? Because you never want to hear, like, that's not going to be possible. And she finally tells me that day, because I tell her, "Mom, I ran for the first time," because she's always so scared. When I would do something new in rehab, she thought I was going to hurt myself. She finally told me, she goes, "Well," I said, "Mom, don't worry, I've been running for a month, so I haven't hurt myself yet." And she said, "Well, you know why I'm so concerned about you?" She said, "They told a week after you woke up from the coma, they took your dad and I aside and said that Jason's not going to walk for at least 6 months, maybe more." I walked in 3. And they said, "He's not going to do anything useful outside of the house or go back to work for at least a year, maybe longer." I started doing things useful outside of the house as soon as I got home from the hospital 3.5 months later. On that day, I said, I thought about the race, because the race at first was like 2 years away. And then I'm like, wait a minute. If I'm doing everything twice as fast as anyone possibly predicted, and they said I would never run, I'm already running a little bit, I was like, I'm signing up for a race this year. I'm not waiting 2 years. I'm going to do it this year. So I went home, remembered a race I had done probably 6 or 7 years prior, because I hadn't been racing in the last 6 or 7 years prior to the accident. And I signed up for the race, and there was 3 months to train. I had no idea if it was possible or not, but I was like, there's only one way to find out.
So there's 3 months to train for a triathlon. So can you explain how far that is again?
Well, this particular race was a 0.9 mile swim, 30 miles on the bike, and 6.2 mile run. So, it's like medium distance, I guess.
That's a very far distance for most people. Certainly people with 20 broken bones, that seems completely impossible. So, let me try to I'm trying to think about what these conversations. Well, I guess, did you let doctors in on the fact that, once you went home, were you still having conversations with doctors, and were you keeping this a secret? Because as somebody who's been in recovery from broken bones, as a horseback rider, I broke not only my leg, but I broke my face, and I broke all sorts of things. And I had these very difficult conversations. I went back to horseback riding, and training and competing and getting ready to compete, with a walking cast on. I just rode without stirrups for, 6 months when I wasn't supposed to be riding. And I remember that. But this is different. This is running. This is a high impact, jarring sport. I'm just trying to put this in my mind's eye, what this time period looked like.
Well, it started off slow, because there was certainly doubt, but that's what fueled me. That feeling in your stomach, go, do I think I can do this? I don't know. And I was just like, okay, you've started from nothing and built up a little bit. How do we get to that day? So I'm breaking down every single day of what I need to do in order to get to that day. I'm mapped out day by day of what I'm doing for 3 months. And I go, so I justify it in my mind going, if I could follow this plan, who knows if I could follow that plan physically, because I didn't know what I could do or what I couldn't do physically. I was like, but if I meet these little markers along the way, I think I could finish this race. And it was really to finish, there's no way I was going to be go fast. But I didn't want anyone to know I'm injured at the race. The time limit's the time limit. It didn't matter if I'm healthy or unhealthy. They give you a time limit. If you don't finish in this time limit, they're kicking you off the course. I knew it. So when I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, I need to go this many miles an hour on the bike to make that cutoff. I need to go this fast on the swim. I need to go this fast on the run. And it's a cumulative effect also, right? Because it's like you can independently do those things maybe in that amount of time, but you have to do all three in that amount of time. So I'm breaking it down in my mind and going, okay, I found the plan that's going to get me to that day and is going to allow me to do it.